Hi, this is Heidi from Garden Crossings, and I am out in the Proven Winners Color Choice Trial Garden right now. And we're going to take you for a walk through the garden and just show you some of the things that look beautiful in mid-December. This is definitely not the normal time of year when I'm out in this garden, but I know that the gardens have so much to offer even in what's considered an off-season. So we're going to go ahead and take a walk through and feature some of the plants that will add color to your winter gardens. Here we have the Ilex Berry Heavy Gold. This is a great plant for winter interest. You can see these clusters of these beautiful bright golden yellow berries. Berry Heavy Gold is hardy in zones 3 to 9, so it's super hardy for pretty much any place here in the United States. And it can get upwards of 8 foot tall if you let it. You can see here in this garden, it's been trimmed to about 6 foot. And I think when you do trim it, it just kind of keeps a nice habit, keeps the berries kind of all on top like you're seeing here. These berries are great for the birds in the winter, so they add some really nice winter interest. One thing to point out with Berry Heavy Gold is you do want to make for sure that you have a male pollinator. So you could use Mr. Poppins, Goblin Guy. Those would all be pollinators that you could use to bring this beautiful berry set. But definitely this is just loaded with a ton of berries right now. It's mid-December, so great color to add into your garden, and doing so in the form of berries. Salex Black Cat, it's a pussy willow. And one thing I wanted to show you is the unique habit of this. So you can see these really long stems. So in the spring, let's actually go and take a look first here at the buds. So you can see these beautiful buds. In the spring, these buds will open up and they'll have a near black or gray, fuzzy little, I guess I'm going to call it a flower. I don't know what else to call it. But you can see how this is just loaded. So this stem is going to be just loaded with these beautiful little fuzzy gray flowers on it. They're not a flower, but you know what I mean. Anyways, one thing I want to point out with Black Cat is you can see how the stems are so nice and long. So this is a great cut flower or shrub to use for cuttings. This is probably about 10 foot tall right now, and it can get up to 12 foot tall and wide. The Black Cat is hardy in zones 4 to 7, so it's a great shrub for Michigan, maybe down to Tennessee or so. Really a unique kind of airy habit. So if you're looking to add a little interest for winter, but more so looking at what it can offer for you in the early spring, you may want to consider adding the Black Cat pussy willow to your collection. So Arctic Fire is known for its red twigs. We'll go in and take a closer look here at these plants. And you can see this is a pretty old plant. So there's the red it's definitely there. But what you would do is if you have an old red twig dogwood in your yard, to get it looking really bright and fiery, the best thing to do is about every 2 years or so, trim that baby back. So for example, here's a new twig and it's got really a nice red color to it. Here's an older twig and it's more brown. So if you've got these red twig dogwoods and they're starting to kind of look a little bit more brown and not so red, it just means that they need a good trim. So this one here is supposed to get 3 to 5 foot tall, but clearly here in this garden, these are upwards of 8 foot tall at this point. So they are certainly ready for a trim. Dogwood are hardy in zones 2 through 7. So definitely for the colder climates, dogwood is something that you could be putting in your garden. So if you're looking for some interest, also for your winter porch plants, dogwood is a good cut stem. So you just cut them back a little bit and stick them in your winter porch pots, and it adds a really nice splash of red to the yellow, to the greenery that you may be using. And obviously you can see, like with these plants, they could use a good cutting right now. So don't be afraid to trim out any plants, any twigs that you need to, because it's just going to help that plant look even redder over time. Here we have the beautiful Ilex. This is Berry Heavy, and you can see here there's a grouping of 3, and just look how bright red those beautiful berries are. So if you're looking to add some winter interest to your garden, you can see for the most part out where we're at right now, it's pretty bare, not a lot of interest going on, except for these red berries are really putting on a show. So Berry Heavy is hardy in zones 3 to 9. And this one here gets about 6 foot tall. The berries on this, they're definitely red, but they have a little bit of kind of an orange undertone to them. You can see that this plant, it's mid-December right now, it's loaded with berries. And this is great too for like wildlife. If you like to have the wildlife in your garden, the birds really do appreciate these berries as well. Another thing you can do with these berries is if you want to cut little twigs out of the plants and use them in your winter porch pots, it's always fun to add a little splash of color into your winter container arrangements. So berry heavy, you can see it's a deciduous. Holly loses its leaves and leaves you with this beautiful display of red berries for the winter. And here we have the Cornus Arctic Fire Yellow. So this is a yellow twig dogwood, and you can see it's got that really beautiful yellow color from top to bottom. This is hardy in zones 2 through 7 and gets about 4 to 5 foot tall and wide. So these plants here have either been trimmed or they're young plants, because they're only about 3 foot tall here in the garden. But one thing to point out with the Arctic Fire Yellow is this plant does get a little bit more wide than what it gets tall. So beautiful twigs in the winter. You can see here how they really stand out in this garden. Imagine a nice fresh layer of snow, how they would really pop. Or if you had them planted in front of some beautiful green evergreens, that would also really make these plants stand out nicely. The yellow twig dogwood, what you could do with those is in the winter, not only do they add, this splash of yellow to the garden, but you could cut out some of those twigs and use them in your winter porch pots. So maybe mix them in with a little bit of the red twig dogwood, some of the yellow twig dogwood, just to add some really nice columnar splashes or thrillers to those winter containers. Here we have the Ilex Berry Poppins. So you can see it's got a beautiful splash of red in these berries. Berry Poppins is hardy in zones 3 to 9, and it gets about 3 to 4 foot tall and wide. So it's semi-compact, doesn't get super huge in the garden, which I think is kind of nice. Some gardens, just need a little bit of a smaller footprint with the shrubs that are planted in it. And Berry Poppins, I think, is one of those nice smaller plants. So Berry Poppins is the female, and you can see all these beautiful clusters of berries. It does need a male pollinator in order to get these berries. So what we would recommend doing is planting Mr. Poppins, and that is how you'll get these berries. Now you only need one male to probably, 5 or 6 females. So the male isn't going to get berries, so it's pretty insignificant in the garden. But you only need one, and you can go with a lot of females so that you can have a beautiful berry color. So these berries are good in the winter for the birds. They also add color into the garden when the garden's looking pretty brown and not a whole lot going on. One thing I like to do with the holly is I'll cut the twigs and use them in my winter porch pots. So if you're looking to add just a splash of red in with your evergreens, this definitely is a beautiful addition. Here you can see in the background there's a nice, I don't know if that's a thuya, I think it is, in the background. And just look how nice that red pops up against that green. So really beautiful. And when you're planting this in the garden too, you might want to think about planting these next to evergreens, just so that way you have that backdrop to really enhance that red berry look in your garden. And in front of us here, you can see this trio of Gin Fizz. This is a juniper that is hardy in zones 4 to 8. At maturity, it gets 10 to 18 foot tall and about 10 or so foot wide. And let's go in and take a look. It's got really a nice dense full habit here. And the thing that is also unique with junipers in general are the berries. So let's go in and take a look here at the berries. You can see there's some berries there, some really blue colored berries there. Gin Fizz is also a nice thing to have in the garden because obviously it's evergreen, but also it gives a little place for birds to go and hide and stay warm in the winter. And the berries are also a nice treat for the birds as well. These we were just commenting as we were looking at them. They kind of remind you of the Whoville trees where the tips kind of bend over, which is definitely not intentional of these plants, but just something we were kind of noticing as we were out in the garden looking at them. These would also be a great plant with a nice columnar habit. Wrap some Christmas lights around it if you want, and have a nice really a nice shaped tree to add to your winter gardens. So if you're looking to add something unique, evergreen to the garden, consider giving the Juniper Gen Fizz a try. And here we have a beautiful evergreen. This is a juniper. It's called AQUAVITA. It gets 10 to 15 feet tall, and its hardy in zones 4 to 9. 10 to 15 feet tall, but only about 3 to 4 foot wide. So it's very columnar, kind of a straight up plant. The one thing I want to point out is it's got gorgeous foliage. So look at how kind of fine looking that foliage is, really blue colored. If you're looking for a plant that the deer will leave alone, this definitely junipers, they don't tend to bother the junipers at all. And you can see here it's got these beautiful blue berries. But yeah, that blue color is just really standing out here as we're looking at this plant right now. And you can see in the garden here on the background, there's a arborvitae that's kind of that green. And you can definitely see the color difference here between the blue and the green. And the nice thing with this plant is it stands out really well in the winter gardens up against, you know, anything that you have going on. Nice shape. Also too, if you're somebody that likes to decorate for the winter, you could take little cuts out of this plant and use it in your winter arrangements, as well as decorating it with colorful lights if that's your style. But the thing that I think stands out most with the juniper, the AQUAVITA, is definitely the very nice blue foliage and the texture of this plant. So if you're looking to add a little texture to the garden that's evergreen and will just really be beautiful in all seasons, consider giving Juniper AQUAVITA a try. And here we have the gem box. I'm sure you've watched maybe this video from one of my summer garden tours, but I've never really featured it here in the winter. So in the winter, you can see pretty much everything around is bare sticks, but yet this gem box is making a wonderful hedge here in this garden. We'll go in and take a closer look, and you can see the nice fine foliage here. This one's been trimmed up, kind of a wider at the bottom, skinnier at the top looking hedge. So just really something you can keep as a round ball or create a really interesting hedge if you're looking to. Gem box is hardy in zones 5 through 9, so pretty much adaptable anywhere in the United States, unless if you're in the really cold areas. And it gets about 2 to 3 foot tall and wide. If you're looking for a nice deer-resistant option, gem box is something that you can plant in the garden and not need to worry about any deer browsing on this plant. So if you're looking for something as a boxwood alternative, this is kind of one of those plants that we would recommend as a boxwood alternative, and really makes a really pretty look here out in the garden. And I wanted to show you these beautiful boxwood. These here are the North Star boxwood, and the thing we like about boxwood is a nice dense habit. North Star is about 2.5 foot tall and wide, so it makes a really nice globe look in the garden. And they're hardy in zones 5 to 9. So very versatile plants, nice deep green foliage. They're deer resistant, so if you're looking to create something that gives you the evergreen color and you don't need to worry about the deer eating it, definitely boxwood is something you may want to consider. You can see here in this garden, there's a planting of 3 of them. And so you can kind of plant them so that they stand out individually, or if you wanted, you could create like a hedge and have them touching each other and create like a flat wall looking edge, or even round them out, kind of whatever you want to do. Boxwood are very, very trimmable and very shapeable to whatever works best for your particular situation in your garden or landscape. Another neat thing you can do with boxwood is you can put them in containers and shape them up nicely in containers as well. So that would look really cool if you wanted to have your entryway with 2 boxwoods on either side. That would be really pretty looking as well. So if you're looking for a great evergreen for the garden that you can trim and shape kind of however you want, this definitely is something you may want. These like to be grown in a full sun location. They can handle a little bit of shade, but we really recommend keeping them in the full sun. And here we have the Chamaecyparis. This is a soft serve gold. I really wanted to stop and show you this because, as you can see, it really pops in this garden. There's not a lot of leaves on any of the trees right now. There's just some evergreens that remain, but even the greens are green, and this soft serve gold is a beautiful shade of yellow. So Caryopteris soft serve gold gets 6 to 10 foot tall and about 5 to 6 foot wide, and they're hardy in zones 4 to 8. So this is a great evergreen that is deer resistant, and you can plant just one singular one in the garden if you want. Like here there's two, but could you imagine if you had like two really tall pine trees behind it with this soft serve gold as kind of the third plant in the planting, how it just really stands out beautiful up against that dark green. Also, if you're into doing like winter porch pots, this is another great plant that you can use in winter porch pots. I know I've talked a lot about things that you can use in those winter porch pots, but this time of year, a lot of what we're seeing is evergreen. And I know, at least here in Michigan, a lot of people like to do the interesting porch planters, you know, cutting your hydrangeas for some interest, but definitely mixing up a lot of the different evergreens is cool too. And if you can add a little splash of yellow in, that just adds even more interest. So this here today is a Caryopteris soft serve gold. It's a beautiful evergreen that you could use in your garden as just a singular plant, a specimen, or if you wanted to create a beautiful border of them, this also would be a great plant to create a border of. And I wanted to show you this Interstella. So this is a Pieris, and I guess the name of it is Puris Interstella. This is a great multi-season shrub. So this one here is probably about a little bit bigger than 2 foot tall, 2 foot wide. But at maturity, this is going to get up to 4 foot tall and 4 foot wide. It does tend to be a little bit slower growing, but you can see it's a beautiful evergreen. We are in a zone 6 area here right now, and this plant is hardy in zones 5 to 8. Another deer resistant option. We'll go in and take a closer look here. You can see these beautiful rosy pink bracts just all over this plant. And this will get in the springtime little hot pink berries. So basically, as you're looking at this, every little detail that you're seeing is going to be a beautiful little berry. So they just kind of, weird word here, but dangle, I guess, on this shrub. And you can just see with all of this pink going on now, how this is just going to be loaded with flowers come the springtime. So great evergreen foliage, seasons of interest here in the winter. You've got the beautiful magenta pink bracts. You're going to get berries on it. Just one of those shrubs that it's only about 2 years old or so since we've had it, and one that isn't, we don't really talk about a whole lot, but something that I think definitely is worth talking about. Kind of like the proudberry. We hadn't talked about that much, and that's such an underutilized shrub as well. We'll pop a picture up so you can see what I'm talking about with the proudberry. But this Puris Interstella, definitely something that I have in my garden, and I think that would be a great plant. Like if you're looking for something unique and different, something to put on your wish list as well if you are in those zones. Thank you for following along today as we walk through the shrub trial gardens. We hope that you found this information informative. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to be updated on any new videos as they are posted. And as always, you can shop online at gardencrossings.com.